Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate all the support. We've been waiting for this. If you're a Packers fan, you've been waiting for a dominant win against a pretty damn good football team, and the Packers did that. They lead wire to wire Sunday night, come out of Seattle with a 30-13 victory. Just been waiting for it. I think, before this win over the Seahawks, Green Bay's best win of the year was like Houston. Houston's going to be a division winner, a playoff team. Seattle now in a tie with the Rams, and they're going to have to fight their ass off to get a playoff spot. I think down the stretch I saw the Rams have the Jets, the Cardinals, and then the Seahawks. It could come down to that Week 18 matchup to decide the NFC West, but this was a hungry Seattle team. This was a Seahawks team rolling, having won 4 straight, entering this game on Sunday night. And I think Packer fans, it wasn't a complete performance, and there were probably some bad flashbacks going on after Jacobs fumbled and then Seattle went down the field and scored a touchdown. It was like 23-13 with over 10 minutes to go. There might have been some flashbacks of past losses in that stadium for many Packer fans, but they closed it out. It is the instant reaction video, by the way, so we bounce all over the map on this. Appreciate anyone tuning in. Just, again, we've been waiting for a game like this from the Packers. They were dominant against San Francisco. San Francisco's not the 49ers team we've become accustomed to seeing. They were pretty dominant against Miami. Look at Mike McDaniel's numbers against teams over 500 as the head coach of the Dolphins. It's not exactly impressive. Seattle's good. That stadium's crazy. That fan base is incredible. There were a lot of Packer fans there in this game, but this was a statement win if anyone needed to know or still held reservations, myself included, like, how real is this Green Bay team? And I know Detroit fans are going to say, well, they're 0-2 against us. Viking fans are going to say they're 0-1 against us. I get all that. This was still a confidence builder for the Packers in the way that they won it. They beat Houston, but it was a nail-biter, 24-22. Was that back in October, I believe it was. And again, that was probably their best win to date. They've had games where they've come out like they did in this one and suffocated the opponent early. They went up, was it 17-0 against Arizona, or 24-0, I think it was. They went up 24-7 on San Francisco. They've had games where they've jumped out to an early lead, but man, this one, 4 drives in the first half, and you go touchdown, field goal. That's great. You're up 23 at halftime, 20-3 at the break for Green Bay on the road in a hostile environment, again, against a team that's playing red-hot, great football. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start by saying welcome back to 2 players, Romeo Doubs and Edgerrin Cooper. I don't even know where to start. Do we start with the shoestring touchdown catch by Romeo Doubs, the final dagger in this game to put the Packers up 30-13, and how different that wide receiver room really looks when Romeo Doubs is in the lineup compared to when he's out of the lineup? And he was wearing the Guardian cap coming back from a concussion, and he goes for 2 touchdowns on 3 receptions, a super productive day for Rome. Just, the receiver room just has more juice when 8-7's in that lineup. I'm going to have to look at snap count totals tomorrow because they don't come out right away, meaning Monday. But it looked like Watson and Dobbs played the starter snaps. Wicks took a heavy reserve role, and Jaden Reed took a reserve role but was out there. It appeared much more than Wicks, but not as much as Dobbs and Watson. So there was no easing back of Romeo Doubs. He was cleared from concussion protocol, jumped right in, 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just a sensational second touchdown to really put the final nail in the coffin in this one. So it's so good seeing 8-7 back out there. And then, man, I mean, I've talked ad nauseum about it. If you go back and watch or just peek at any of my snap count videos from the first 2.5 months of the season, I'm pretty sure I bring up Edgerrin Cooper a million times. I realize he's a rookie, he's a second-round pick. You want to bring him along slowly, but those first 2.5 months and all the snap count videos, the reactions, I was begging for Edgerrin Cooper to get more run on the field. He returned from injury in this game against Seattle after missing a couple of games. 7 tackles, most on the team. 6 solo tackles, most on the team. 2 TFLs, 1 sack, an interception. Should have had 2 interceptions, quite frankly. But I don't know what it was about the Green Bay defense, because I know Seattle's a good-ass team. It looked like the defense was playing on a fast track. This defense was flying around. I was wrong in this assumption. When I did the preview video, I had noted, Geno Smith was the third most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year, and he also had thrown the third most amount of interceptions entering this game with 12. And I had brought up the question. I said, what do I think is more likely in this one? That the Packers pick off Geno twice, and they picked him off once. And I said, or that Green Bay racks up 5 or more sacks. And I said, given, the takeaways have dipped off a little bit for the Packers, but they were so prominent and a key to success early in the season in those first 4, 5, 6 weeks. I said we've seen it more consistently with Green Bay having the ability to take it away, that I trusted the defense to pick off Geno twice more than I did for that defense to rack up 5 or more sacks. And I was barely wrong, but I'm happy to be wrong. 7 sacks for the Packers. Edgerrin Cooper had 1. Enagbare had 2. Rashawn Gary 1. Brenton Cox 1. Devontae Wyatt 1. And Carl Brooks said, I'll join the fun. He had 1. I mean, the push they were getting on the offensive line, and I'll be honest, I had brought up that Geno had been sacked the third most amount of times this year, but it had gotten better over the last couple of games. And I did have some Seahawk fans in my comments somewhat correcting me, saying, oh, no, the offensive line's playing different now. And it worried me because I was like, man, Green Bay's pass rush hasn't been able to hit all the way home this year. Whether you're even looking at quarterback pressures, hits, sacks, it just hasn't been. They had one really, really good game against Tennessee all the way back in, was that week 3, where I think they piled up 8 sacks. And you're not going to do that every week, not even close to it. But Green Bay's had too many weeks where it's 0 sacks, 1 sack as a team. And so when Seahawks fans were telling me, like, yeah, Geno's been sacked a lot, but the offensive line's getting healthy and playing much better recently, I was like, well, they've won 4 in a row. And so I was more worried, or I was more hesitant to buy in that Green Bay could pile some up against Geno and that Seattle offensive line. But, man, they got the push early. They got it often. I thought most of the night it was pretty consistent across the board. Seattle made some plays when it was kind of feeling like the game was teetering on being out of reach. But that pass rush was incredible for Jeff Hafley's group. And, again, there's 2 things I'm excited to look at from this game. One is I do want to see the snap count totals, like I always want to look at, but I want to see how many times Jeff Hafley blitzed, because it seemed like he was bringing a fifth, a whole hell of a lot more than what we've seen in recent weeks. And some of that may have been situational, because it seemed like when Seattle was in a 2nd and long or a 3rd and long, Hafley would dial up pressure. Again, I'm going to have to wait for those numbers to come out in a day or 2, but that's what it seemed like. When it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 6 and you want to blitz, but you also don't want to give up the first down of the big play, we've seen Hafley maybe more hesitant to bring pressure this year. When it was 2nd and long and 3rd and long, and it seemed like there were a bunch of those for the Seattle offense in this game, He cut them loose. He cut them loose in 7 freaking sacks. There was one drive where it was like the Kingsley Enagbare show, and he had 2 sacks. He finished with 3 TFLs, 5 tackles, all of them solo. Like, there was one drive where Seattle didn't do a damn thing, and it was like Enagbare sack, Enagbare tackle, Enagbare sack. It was crazy to see the consistency of the pass rush that Green Bay had in this game, and it makes you a little bit giddy. And Rashawn Gary, I mentioned his name. He had a sack in this game too. He, to me, is the key ingredient. He is the key ingredient to the recipe. If Rashawn Gary can get it going, and he has in the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to open up opportunities for others. That's my true belief. I think Rashawn Gary is the key piece of the puzzle. If he gets going, he has proven in the past to be such a force. He is paid like one of the premier pass rushers in this game. And if he can start to dial in and find some consistency, it will force offenses to game plan around focusing on him, and it'll open up opportunities for guys like Kingsley Enagbare, Carl Brooks, so Brenton Cox Jr., so on and so forth. I cannot say enough about this defensive front. The only guy I wish would have gotten in on the action that had a really quiet night was Lucas Van Ness. I don't remember seeing him in there too many times when the Packers were causing chaos for the Seattle offensive line, but I'm not going to nitpick that after a 7-sack performance for the defense. Just incredible. So you're talking about 2 guys that were missed dearly, one on offense, one on defense. Romeo Doubs and Edgerrin Cooper both come back, and they have a party. Doubs with 2 touchdowns, Edgerrin Cooper, a couple TFLs, a sack, and an interception. Should have had 2 picks, man. He should have, but depending on the severity of Quay Walker's injury and you want him back as soon as possible, I'm not saying you give the green dot to Edgerrin Cooper. That'll probably go to Eric Wilson as it should. But if Quay Walker misses any time, I still feel good about the linebacker core because of what Cooper displayed in this game against Seattle and what he's shown all year. They brought it up on the broadcast multiple times. When he was flying around making plays left and right, they're like, I think one of the lines they used, I don't know if it was Mike Tirico or Chris Collinsworth, but they said Edgerrin Cooper is a star in the making, and that other teams, other coordinators have raved about how good Edgerrin Cooper is going to be. And he, my goodness, he put it on display in this one. And it was much needed. I don't know what it was about the defense, but they looked so much quicker, so much faster. The anticipatory plays, they seemed to always be there in the right spot at the right time. It was as if Seattle handed over its blueprint and said, here's what we're running and when we're running it on what downs. It looked like that at times. That's how good the Green Bay defense was. We were in the fourth quarter, almost halfway through, and Seattle had, I think, when I looked, like 175 yards of total offense. And now they chewed up some late in the game, and they had that touchdown run by Charbonnet, but this was a clinic put on by the Green Bay defense. And I'll admit, when I saw some of the Seahawks fans commenting, and I'm sure they were right, like, hey, the offensive line has played better, it worried me because the Packers' pass rush has not been good for much of this year, but they did a 180 in this game. 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 12 quarterback hits. Crazy. And a big part of it, Edgerrin Cooper. It is Mitch Iama on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Packers take down Seattle 30-13. Green Bay's 10-4. I believe if they beat the Saints next week, you clinch a playoff spot. Pretty simple. And the Saints, Derek Carr was out. They barely lost to Washington 20-19 on Sunday, but they benched Jay Kaner for Spencer Rattler. If you've got either of those quarterbacks start next week at Lambeau, with how confident this defense should be playing after this performance against that Seattle offense, there are no easy games in the NFL, but Green Bay should be a heavy, heavy favorite against the Saints next Monday night. Looking at the other side of the ball, again, it's instant reaction, so we bounce around left and right. The first half, I hit on this briefly. I don't know why they didn't start this way against Detroit. So frustrating. That game's behind us. I get it. But early on against the Lions, it was as if Matt LaFleur forgot he had Josh Jacobs. And it made no sense on those first 3 drives. First 3 drives, they went punt, fumble. And then the fourth drive against the Lions, it was like 11 plays, 10 runs, Josh Jacobs touchdown, easy as can be. This game, they went back to that bread and butter. Opening drive for the Green Bay Packers, 10 plays, 8 runs. Even the passes involved Josh Jacobs. It was a Josh Jacobs feast and resulted in a touchdown for the Packers. Opening drive, they won the toss. They said, give us the goddamn ball. They went right down the field, 10 plays, 8 runs, touchdown. Boom. Easy as can be for the Packers. And I'm sitting there like, oh, what an epiphany. Look what this offense looks like when you lean on the run, when you lean on Josh Jacobs, the bell cow, who, yes, had a fumble, only his second of the season, but also had 94 rush yards, 42 receiving yards, and a tutty. Josh Jacobs, he brings a different dynamic than running backs we've seen in past years for Green Bay, and that's not a shot at, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Jamal Williams, any of those guys. Josh Jacobs, he's a different breed. He's cut from a different cloth. That dude is an absolute tank, and Green Bay's going to ride him to the finish line, wherever that finish line might be for them, and they're going to hope it's New Orleans in February, but Josh Jacobs, just incredible, and I was so pleased to see that they came out and ran it down the throats of Seattle. There is nothing more demoralizing, I don't believe, in football for a defense, especially when you're playing at home. You've won 4 in a row. You're leading your division. You need a win to hold that lead. Otherwise, you're tied with the LA Rams. And Green Bay came right out of the gates, smacked Seattle right across the face, 10 plays, 8 runs. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to dress it up. We're going to hand it off to Josh Jacobs, run it down your throats, try and stop us. The Seahawks couldn't. Now, credit to Seattle and credit to Mike McDonald. They made whatever adjustments they made at halftime, that Green Bay rushing offense was invisible. It was non-existent for almost the entire second half. And so Seattle made adjustments, but you're down 23 at the break, 22-3 at halftime. that's tough sledding to try to dig out of that hole with the Green Bay offense and defense that are both cooking. And that opening drive was poetic for Matt LaFleur and Green Bay, and they really did not abandon the run all night long. They finished with 34 rushes. Love only threw it 27 times. Efficient for J. Love, 20 of 27, 229, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, just love the start, the opening script of that first drive for the Packers. And I mentioned they had 4 drives in the first half, touchdown, field goal. I mean, you're going on the road against a good defense in a hostile environment. Can't really draw it up much better. And in that first half, Jordan Love, 12 of 13, 142 yards and a tutty. That's beautiful. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Packers take down the Seahawks 30-13. I told you guys, and first off, let's hope Geno Smith's okay, because Geno Smith is a dog. Geno Smith is a damn warrior, and he has shown that throughout his career. That dude could have mailed it in at multiple different pit stops, multiple different points in his career, and he kept grinding, and he's now been the Seahawks starting quarterback for a few years, and well-deserved, and he's been a damn good quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, and he went down in the second half in the game against Green Bay. And so you hope Geno Smith's okay, but I told you guys in the video when I went back and watched some of the interceptions that he threw this year, most of them were not like, oh, bad luck, tipped up in the air, off of receivers, shoulder pad chest bounces up high in the defense. Like, they're just like, a lot of them were confusing reads, confusing decisions. More so, you just come to the conclusion like Geno Smith is a gunslinger, and he's really a gunslinger in the red zone. And I told you guys repeatedly, Geno Smith will throw you a cookie. He'll throw you at least one. Can you capitalize on it? And the interception, I don't think all interceptions are made the same. I really don't. They all count as one turnover. But situational football factors into when interceptions pop up and how much you can value them. In Green Bay being up 17-3, you're ticking under 3 minutes to go in the first half. Seattle's driving. They're moving it. They're in the red zone. And Geno Smith almost threw an interception to Carrington Valentine a couple plays prior. If I'm not mistaken, it was on that same drive. And then he did throw one to Carrington Valentine in the end zone. And if you're Seattle, it was third down. You're guaranteed 3. I know you're down 17-3. You want the touchdown. You want the big play. You want that boost going into halftime. But you're guaranteed 3. You're guaranteed 17-6. And instead, Geno Smith tries threading that needle. Carrington Valentine reads it like a book and picks it off. And then Green Bay goes back down the field and gets a field goal before half to go up 20-3. That sucked a lot of the life out of that stadium, out of that Seattle sideline. And Green Bay already had Uncle Mo on its side. You're up 17-3, but 17-10, 17-6. Obviously, things look a lot different, and Seattle gets the ball to start the second half, and they score going into the break. Instead, Green Bay picks off Geno Smith. Shout out to CV. And things just look a lot different. And I had said it's just kind of who Geno Smith is. He will try to thread that needle. Can you capitalize? And he threw one in this game. And I do want to point out something else, too. Obviously, you hope Geno Smith's okay, but I have not seen this. I record these videos right after the game goes final, hence the name Instant Reaction. Miss me with anyone. I don't think Seahawks fans will do it. They're a smart fan base, and they're a smart fan base. They have way too much pride. Like they know how this game was unfolding. But miss me with anyone who says, hey, who knows how this game would have panned out if Geno didn't get hurt. Geno Smith got hurt in the third quarter when the Packers were up 20-3, and the Seahawks offense couldn't do a damn thing. And so if Geno doesn't get nicked up there and miss the rest of the game, I don't think the Seahawks come back and win. And I like every team's going through injuries. Like the Packers played 2.5 games this year without Jordan Love, and they went 3-0 in those games. It's next man up. And Seattle's backup quarterback isn't Joe Schmo. It's Sam Howell, who was a full-time starter last year for a full season in Washington. He has some experience. And so if there is anyone out there like, man, the Geno injury really changed things, did it? It was already 20-3. I'm not going to listen to any of that. I'm not going to entertain any of it either. The Packers were already controlling that game when Geno Smith got hurt. And I'm going to credit Green Bay's defense regardless of who was under center. Packers are up 23. You're feeling really good. But you also know the Packers, they have a knack for letting teams back into games when they build leads like this. They have a knack for not keeping their foot on the accelerator. And Seattle gets the ball coming out of half. That was a pivotal drive. Green Bay's up 23. This is another shifting point in the game potentially. Green Bay gets the stop. They force a punt. They get the ball back. To me, that was huge. For as awesome as the sacks were, for as awesome as that Romeo Doubs touchdown was to put the dagger in this game, and it was a sensational catch by 8-7, and for the incredible running that Josh Jacobs did, especially in that first half, that drive to start the third quarter was one to go back and circle for Green Bay. Because how many times have we seen Green Bay in years past start fast and then let a team creep back in slowly but surely? Jeff Hafley's defense didn't allow that on Sunday night. 20-3 coming out of the break, Seattle ball. Green Bay forces a punt. To me, that was huge. That was a massive point in this game. I know we talk a lot about, again, it's instant reaction, so we bounce around a lot. We talk about the stupid stuff I always bring up with Green Bay, and it's dumb penalties, which plagued them in the middle portions of the season heavily. It's drop passes, and it's turnovers. Jordan Love, I'm going to have to look, 4th game in a row without an interception? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 4th game in a row for Jordan Love without an interception. And before that, he had thrown at least one in every game. 4th game in a row, clean sheet interception department for Jordan Love. I don't know if he had any interceptable balls. Like, were there any that should have been picked? I don't know. I don't recall one where it was like, oh, that probably should have been picked. The stupid stuff we talk about. Turnovers. There was one. The Josh Jacobs fumble. The dumb penalties. Green Bay, I think, only had 5. There was one false start on Sean Ryan where it was like, if it was one of those dumb penalties, but it's loud in that environment. I get it. Drops. I don't remember many big drops, if any drops at all. Does the muffed punt count? I mean, my heart stopped when Jaden Reed muffed that punt up 23-13 with less than 10 minutes to go, but still plenty of time for Seattle. Now, he dove back on it, but if you want to count a muffed punt as a drop, Green Bay did retain possession. But the stupid stuff that has many Packer fans pulling their hair out at different portions of the year, heavily limited in this one, and it helps to build a 14-0 lead in the first quarter because you're going to limit some of those dumb mistakes that Green Bay's the youngest team in the NFL, and a lot of times you can panic a little, even if it's not showing. You know, internally you can have some panic set in. You want to, if you're down 14-0, you want to make the 14-point play that doesn't exist in football. And it helped that Green Bay got it big, but those stupid things that bother. Every team's going to have penalties, every team's going to have turnovers, but it's the pick 6 against Detroit at the end of the first half. That's a stupid interception by Jordan Love. It's the pre-snap penalties that we had seen over and over and over again for Green Bay. And it's the drop passes that also showed up a couple of months ago big time in that loss to the Lions at Lambeau Field and throughout other portions of the season. Very, very limited in this win against the Seahawks. And it shows. You win 30-13 when you limit the dumb penalties. You don't have any drops that I remember, and 1 turnover, a fumble, but you forced 2. You had 2 interceptions. And then the categories we've been itching to see: pass rush, sacks, 7. Freaking 7. It's insane. And turnovers forced. 2 interceptions, should have been 3. Going to win a lot of ball games against a lot of good teams doing that. You have to. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come. Now, I will say, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't pacing heavily in my living room in that fourth quarter after Josh Jacobs fumbled and Seattle scored. I think I mentioned this at the outset of the video. Yes, I had flashbacks. Fail Mary, NFC Championship. I had flashbacks where it was like, is this really going to happen again? Where Green Bay appears to have a game in the bag in Seattle, and then there is a sequence of events that not only it's like, oh, shucks, how'd they lose that game? Where it is Seattle ripping your heart out, looking you in the eye as they stomp on your heart on the ground. Yes, when it was 23-13, I had some of those flashbacks. Thankfully, Green Bay made sure that it wasn't another one of those memories made. They were able to hang on. They were able to win a decisive game, a wire-to-wire lead for the Packers. Been waiting for it. And yeah, I do feel different about this win. Had Green Bay won a nail-biter, that was a nail-biter, from the opening kickoff to, the final kneel-down. Had Green Bay won, but it was like 30-27, or if you want to go lower scoring, if it was like 23-20, I'd be thrilled with the win, but I'd still be wondering, like, when you're playing Detroit or Philly, or you got Minnesota in a couple weeks on the road in Minnesota, can Green Bay get a decisive win against a good team? They got that tonight. I do. I know it just counts as one. And I'm not saying this team is now a Super Bowl favorite. They are not the Super Bowl favorite. But this game showed me they can go on the road in a hostile environment against a playoff caliber team and dominate. And I think that's crucial. I think other teams in the league, wherever you're going, wild card weekend, whether it's Seattle again or back to LA to face the Rams or Atlanta or Tampa Bay, they're going to be put on notice. This is one of those games they'll look at and they'll be like, shit, like Green Bay can dominate on the road. And they showed that in this game against the Seahawks. And to me, it feels different. Things were clicking. And I mean, you look up and Watson was the leading receiver. I hope he's all right. I can't believe they threw it on that third down up 30-13 after the 2-minute warning. Seattle had a timeout, but it looked like they were just going to let Green Bay run the clock down. They throw it to Watson. He, looks like he gets banged up a little bit. I said it last week. This dude's not just a deep threat. This dude's developing a route tree, and he's becoming an overall complete wide receiver. I was just so happy with offense, defense, special teams for the most part for the Packers. They get the win. Green Bay 30-13 over the Seahawks. It is Mitch Heim on YouTube. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already. Big win for the Packers. Back at home Monday Night Football next week against the Saints. We'll have videos throughout the week. We'll see you next time.